on, let's go, boy!
Hey, what's going on, folks? It's CJ here, back with another movie review, and this time we're talking about Kung Fu Panda 4. Um, this is a bit of a unfortunate situation that we have on hand here with this film. Kung Fu Panda 4 is the equivalent of an incomplete video game. And this here's why I say that. You know how like nowadays with some video games, you get that feeling that it's incomplete because while it does the things that is necessary to be a video game, it's giving you like it's giving you a basic campaign. It's doing stuff outside of the campaign, to keep you still entertained after you beat it. But you just got the feeling that there are pieces of this game that's just missing out of it that would have made for a very complete experience. That's essentially what we have with Kung Fu Panda 4. We have a movie that, while it has the skeletons of a competent story from beginning, middle, end, the pieces that would have really driven it home, just like the previous three efforts and even the television shows that's been out previously, it's not there. Kung Fu Panda 4 has Po now still being a Dragon Warrior, and he's at a bit of a crossroads now because he has to give up the role of being Dragon Warrior in order to pretty much be in the Master Oogway, role of the wise sage master, so to speak. And Po is pretty much kind of like the person that loves fighting and being a Dragon Warrior. He doesn't want to give that up. And initially you're like, okay, that's actually, again, we've seen this in previous films of this type where the character doesn't want to move on from something that they love doing. And that's what you see with Po. And it starts off great. But then as the movie progresses, you start seeing in not just the story, but in other aspects of this film that you're like, something's off or something is missing. One of the biggest things in this film that's missing is we don't see the Furious Five. Now, obviously, the actors that play the Furious Five, your Angelina Jolie's and your Seth Rogen and, Jackie Chan and Lucy Liu and David Cross, obviously they're actors. You got to pay them a lot of money. And clearly, with the way the structure of studios now and then trying to save cost of money, obviously that's going to skyrocket the budget. You don't want to bring them in. But I digress. You could have brought other voice actors in that sound close to them and got the point across and still have them. So the Furious Five not being in it is definitely missed, especially when you, again, consider the previous three films had them as part of the storyline, especially in particular with Po, because their interaction, the Furious Five and Po, is great. And it makes for a fun movie on top of that. And them not being in it is like, something's off. And the movie hand ways off of what's going on with them, but you're still kind of left with a little bit of emptiness from that. On top of Po really being at this crossroads of figuring out, his role as on his next stage past being a Dragon Warrior, he comes across a fox named Zen, played by Aquafina, and she's looking for someone to help save her town from the chameleon, played by Viola Davis. And as you expect, crazy shenanigan adventures happen with Zen and Po and their connection, and obviously, where it's going. And I think that goes into the next stage where the character of Zen, who is obviously great and her vibe with Po is great, again, you feel there's something missing with that character where there was more to it, but the movie just gives you kind of a basic gist of who that character is, and then boom, we're moving on, which it's fine, but again, we don't got meat on that character to really care much. And it goes even more when it comes to the main villain of the chameleon. Viola Davis does a really phenomenal job as the villain. Let me get that out the way right now. Because it's Viola Davis, she's going to give you acting. The problem with the chameleon is the movie doesn't make you give a shit about what this character is doing in terms of her like trying to do what most villains do, conquer the world and be all powerful. You don't care. And again, much like with Zen, you felt that there was something more to the character that was supposed to be there to make you really like, oh snap, I'm really invested in what this villain is trying to do, and it's not there. And while you get her sort of conversation when it comes to, Tai Lung, who comes back, Ian McShane is back, you just ultimately don't care. And it sucks because you have Viola Davis playing this character really damn well, but then ultimately the villain just lands like a thud. Um, and that's even on top of just past just the villains, the story, and everything else. It just all culminates to by the time you get to the end of the movie and you get to that climax of the third act climax doesn't really hit like it should to make you really be like, oh man, I love it. It's just like, okay, that's cool. And then boom, the movie ends. And I think that really summarizes what Kung Fu Panda is. It's a by the book, by the numbers film. And again, you can have a by the numbers film, but you have to have something there that's going to keep people engaged. And while the comedic comedy and the character interactions do work to keep you engaged, it's just nothing more to it to really make you like, oh, I'm invested. And that's why at the end of the day, Kung Fu Panda is very much like the equivalent of an incomplete video game. It's just, you've seen what the previous 3 film efforts were. You've seen what the television show for Kung Fu Panda was. And then to see the 4th one really just drop the ball on all that is a shame. And it really reminds me of how Toy Story 4 was. Again, that's another movie that was actually not bad. Again, it got a beginning, middle, and end, but it's just by the time you got to the end of it, you just kind of sat back like, didn't really need it. Didn't really need it. And at least for me, it's very rare I ever say that because I never want to sit there and say that a movie should never exist, right? But it's just with Kung Fu Panda 4, you kind of sit back like, didn't really need it, honestly. And it doesn't mean that the movie is like uber terrible. It's just, okay, it exists, it's here, but didn't really need it. So, unfortunately, I am going to have to give this a 5 out of 10. I wouldn't honestly pay money to go jump through hoops to go see this film because it's just, for me, the excitement that the previous 3 films had just isn't there with this. Like, it's nice to see these characters and stuff, but like, it's just the excitement just isn't there. So 5 out of 10, and that's it for me. So I will catch you guys later. Peace out.